Hello my friends, and welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today Brenna and I are going to be on the house side of the privacy berm. I'm going to show you exactly how I am going to prune back certain perennials, leave certain perennials alone, which shrubs are okay, which shrubs are not. So we're going to do some pruning, some maintenance, give you lots of great information on how you can get your garden ready for an amazing spring of 2025. It is January here in North Carolina, zone 8A. It is a stunningly gorgeous, cool day. It was 19 degrees this morning, so for us that's a little chilly. So we're starting a little later on in the day. My main goal today is we're going to address, like I said, the house side of the privacy berm. And there are certain perennials that I need to go ahead and prune back. Some I need to leave alone until it gets warmer, until we start to go into spring. Some shrubs I can go ahead and prune, some shrubs I need to leave alone. So I'm going to kind of walk you through and literally go like plant by plant and show you what I'm going to do, what I'm going to touch, and what I am not going to touch. I think sometimes that is the best teacher, is to just go through, give you examples of what's in my garden, because I know that a lot of you sweet people have a lot of the same plants. Maybe it's not the exact same cultivar or the variety, but it's in that same family and we can treat it all the same. If you are one of those people that are covered in snow, just put a pin in this, save it, and then come back to it when the snow starts to go away and you can get out into your garden. Very valuable information that I'm going to give you today. Hopefully take any kind of fear, if you have any kind of fear with pruning, because so many people, when I say you have to prune your plants or prune your shrubs or cut, and they freak out because they're afraid they're going to hurt the plant. Plants are so much tougher than we give them credit for, and there is grace in gardening, and it's really hard to ruin a plant or kill a plant. So I want to take the fear out of that pruning and show you exactly what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do is just set the camera up and I'm going to go section by section. We're going to start here on the end of the berm because it's the easiest, and then we'll make our way up as we go. Okay, my friends, before we actually dive right into the pruning session, I want to go ahead and tell you where we are and what the plants are, what we're going to touch, and then basically what we're going to leave alone. So we're on the very corner end of the berm, closest to the creek, closest to the nursery. So right here, I have a beautiful golden Oakland holly. What I am going to do is leave this alone come early spring, and so for me that could be like end of February, 1st of March. I'm going to come through and just slightly take out these tall stalks. So I'm just going to come in and trim that. I'm not going to touch it today. I also have a Kinsley's Ghost honeysuckle that is on the trellis, on the fence rather. Not going to touch it. Leave it alone. There's nothing to do to it. We're going to leave it. We have some clematis in here. The clematis we're going to prune. More about that in a minute. What do you prune now and what do you wait until the spring? We also have 3 October Magic Ruby camellias in here. And these, again, we're going to leave these alone. We're not going to touch them. Leave them alone. We do have a pufferfish panicle hydrangea right here. We're going to go ahead and prune this today just because I want to show you how to do it. So that way when it's time for you to prune your panicle hydrangeas, you'll know how to do it. I have some quick fire fabs up at the top. I think I'm going to leave those alone today. But I could prune them as well. It's going to depend on where you are as to when you want to prune them. Your panicles bloom on new growth. If you get areas with heavy snow load, I know a lot of people will prune these in the fall. Here in the North Carolina, if we want to, basically you can kind of do them anytime. It's not going to really hurt anything. So we're going to go and prune that. And then last but not least, way on the very end, the tall kind of greenish thing, that is a butterfly bush. We're going to wait on that as well. Don't prune your butterfly bushes until the spring when you start to see new growth pop out onto the stems. Then you can prune it. So for now, we are going to leave it. So what we're going to do is, all we have to do today is the clematis and the pufferfish panicle hydrangea. And then of course, if you see a weed, pull a weed. So right in here, when I find a weed, I am going to go ahead and pluck that baby, because let me tell you, the winter weeds, they are prolific. So clematis, then hydrangea. All right, so what we're going to do is, I've got 3 clematis in this area right here. This is Hudson River from our friends at Brushwood Nursery. I'm telling you, y'all, if you are looking to add to your clematis collection, that is the place to shop. It's a great family-owned nursery in Georgia. They will ship you basically a 1-gallon plant, very healthy, very vigorous, great resource. It's also a great resource to learn about your clematis. I am going to prune this because Hudson River is a type 3 clematis. There are 3 types of clematis as far as knowing when they bloom, how they bloom, and then how you prune them. Basically, type 1 blooms on old growth. So you do not want to prune your type 1 clematis right now, because you're going to cut off all your flowers. Reminds you of like a hydrangea. If you're familiar with hydrangeas, like a Macrophylla hydrangea, if you need to prune it, do it immediately after it flowers. Then you're good. Type 2 blooms on old and new. So the best time to prune those would be after that first flush of flowers, and then you could prune it. Type 3, as Hudson River, reminds you of a panicle hydrangea. It blooms on new growth. So we can go ahead and prune it. And y'all, this is so hard. I hope you are taking notes on how to prune your type 3 clematis, because you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to cut it straight to the ground. I am being quite facetious when I say that it is super hard. I'm going to the roots, and I am finding all of those stems, and I am literally cutting it back to the ground. Any of those little guys that are popping out, we want to prune all the way down, get rid of them. There you go. Now, you might say, well, Jenny, why in the world do you have a clematis on the ground? It should be up, you know, being trellised. What are you doing? So when I first placed an order with our friends at Brushwood a couple of years ago, and they saw our video, and they're very kind, and asked if they could send me some clematis. And I said, well, sure, I would love it. I said, just send me whatever it is that you think I need to have. So the owner sent me the Hudson River, and he said, I would love for you to do it as a ground cover as opposed to climbing something. Never thought of that for a clematis. It works beautifully. Love this Hudson River. Does like a nice, I think they call it blue, but it's more like a deep purple kind of bloom on it. Absolutely gorgeous, and blooms its head off. So, very hard pruning your type 3 clematis. Cut it to the ground, my people. All right, so I've got one right here, and then I've got one on the other side. So we're gonna do that really quickly. Got a couple of weeds, pull those weeds out, and then we're gonna hit pufferfish. All right, my friends, so here we have panicle hydrangeas. Panicle hydrangeas bloom on new growth. That means we want to encourage the plant to put on new growth. That is why we prune it. Will this plant bloom if we don't prune it? Sure. Will it be as prolific? Probably not. So the hydrangeas that you prune because they bloom on new growth are going to be your panicles and your smooth hydrangeas. So like your arborescens, your incredibles, your Annabelles, those type of hydrangeas bloom on new growth. Invincibelles, Invincibelle Ruby, Invincibelle Limetta, those are the ones that bloom on new growth. If you don't know, look up to see kind of what that idea of what your hydrangea is. If it's a panicle or a smooth, arborescens and smooth, same thing, you can go ahead and safely prune those before the spring. what we're going to do with pufferfish is I am going to prune it back by about a third, no more than a third, because you don't want to prune it back super hard, because we want these stems down here at the bottom to stay really strong. And if we constantly are cutting them all the way down to the ground, then they're not going to be strong. Are they going to bloom? Yes, but they're going to be floppy and not do as well. So we only prune it by a third or a fourth. At the absolute most would be a half, right? And then just give it a nice overall shape. There are, on the stems, you will be able to see the little bud swells, or the leaf swells rather. These are where two leaves are going to come out of that stem. Ideally, if you can prune right above that, cut right above those little swells. They're like little notches that you can see on here. And it's as simple as that. Basically, you're going to go through and just take all of those little stems and you're going to cut them. If you've got some really thin, spindly ones that are like little tiny little side shoots, just go ahead and cut those off. It'll be perfectly fine. And so it's not, let's see if I can, I'll just get after it with you right here. So we're just going to come through and we are snipping, right? Taking it back by about a third and giving it some good shape. This is a great time to go ahead and shape up your hydrangea. So if you need to, you know, maybe it's a little lopsided, or I don't know, something's going on with it, this is a great time to go ahead and shape it and give it the form that you want. So I'm just going to keep going all the way around, bring her back. She's just going to be sticks, y'all. When we get done with this, nothing but sticks, but man, she's going to be beautiful. You can see all these blooms that she had last year. Love this hydrangea. All right, my friends, so there you go. Your pufferfish has been pruned. Again, not crazy height off of it. By a third, a fourth, just go in there, snip. There were a couple of little tiny, like smaller than a pencil, little stems down there in the center. Just went ahead and just kind of cleaned those up, took those out. And then at the very bottom, I did have a limb that was running horizontal to the ground and really low to the ground. So I just took that out. I just went all the way back to the main trunk of the hydrangea and just cut it off. If you want your hydrangea to be lifted, not necessarily in a perfect standard form, this is a great time to do it. So as you're pruning, get those low limbs and just prune up. This is going to take a process, right? It's a couple of years process of getting it limbed up. I did that to a limelight that's by the creek, and it was a practical reason. The weeds were growing around it and they were kind of starting to grow up in it, and it was hard for me to get those weeds out. So I just kind of, as the years went through, I just limbed it up. Now we have, all my blooms are up top, and it's kind of like a little bit of a multi-trunked tree. So you can do that if you want to, especially when you have a hydrangea that has some height to it, right? So panicle hydrangeas are pruned. Again, camellias, butterfly bush. The butterfly bush is taking every ounce of me not to prune it because I really want to, but it's best for the plant. Just leave it until you see that new growth flush out. And for me, that would probably be like late March, mid-March to mid-April, depending on the weather. And then we can prune it really good, just like a panicle hydrangea. Now, hibiscus. Let's talk about perennial hibiscus. Again, super easy one to do. Next on the agenda is to prune the summerific hibiscus. We have 3 summerific holy grails here up against the fence in the middle of the berm. Y'all, super easy. Just cut them to the ground. There will be no new growth that comes from these stems. This is what you see, all these sticks, was new growth from last year. So what you're going to do is just take your pruners and you're just going to go in there as close to the base as you can and go ahead and just cut it down to the ground. Before I knew that Proven Winners said to wait and not to prune these until like late winter, early spring, I cut mine back in like October, November. Like after they had already stopped blooming, we'd had our first freeze and it had killed all the foliage because I just didn't want to look at sticks throughout the winter. They do suggest to wait and postpone it a little bit, especially if you have an area maybe with like a heavy snow load or something like that, because the stems, when you cut them, are hollow, semi-hollow, and the fear is that if water gets down in there, then it could rot the plant out. I've never had an issue with that in North Carolina. If you want to be cautious, just wait, okay? You can do this once the temperatures start to warm up and you can absolutely cut it then. Other than that, just cut it to the ground. Your perennial hibiscus are going to be some of the last things to emerge from your garden because they love it hot. People get really freaked out. They think they've lost it over the winter. That is rarely the case. It is just that they are very delayed, but once they start coming up, my gosh, they grow like crazy. So I'm just going to kind of finagle my way in here, and I'm just going to cut them back as far as you possibly can. Some of the stems are going to be quite thick, so like even with my Felco 2s, it's a little challenging to do it just because of the circumference of the stem. I can do it no problem, but if you want to go ahead and get some loppers, you can go ahead and use those as well. So literally cut it to the ground, my friends. As easy as that. Just cut it to the ground. You cannot cut this thing back too much, and then there you go. All right, so gonna get the other ones done, and then we're gonna head up to the top of the berm and tackle some more perennials. Okay, my friends, so we're gonna look at the top of the berm, and there's not a lot to do, so we're just gonna kind of walk and talk as we go through this area. Mimi has already gotten a hold of this area, so there's not gonna be a ton for me to do. But basically from this area up is nothing but perennials and some shrubs. So what we have in here is a gorgeous display in the summertime. Right now we have some structure and some interest, and so we have like the Boom Chocolata is down here. There's not much to do, y'all. It's kind of, there's a couple of little bits of foliage on it, but it's pretty much gone dormant. And then we have got phlox through here. This is the ultraviolet phlox, gorgeous, stunning plant. But you can see that Mimi had already cut it down for me. So if it were still had the stalks, you could go ahead and cut some of those down. In fact, she missed one, so I will show you that. And then we have the Russian sage right here. So with your Russian sage, this is one of those that we're not gonna trim right now. We're gonna wait until the spring and start to see some of that new growth popping out. And then we can, at that point, we can really shear it back and get some good full new growth on it. So right now we're just going to leave our Russian sage. I have a Stellar Ruby Magnolia, beautiful evergreen magnolia from our friends at Southern Living Plant Collection. Nothing to do, y'all. The only time I have ever trimmed and pruned this was last season when I came in and just got a little bit off the bottom of the trunk just to kind of limit up just a little bit, but you can see she is fine. Now you might notice some of the brown foliage. This is just some winter burn. It is fine. More than likely this will all fall off in the spring. Not a problem. It'll flush back out. This is just some winter damage. It is okay. If you look on the other side, it's kind of interesting. Excuse the shadow there, but on this back side, she's still stunning. There is no damage whatsoever, and that's just how the air is hitting it. So leaving that Stellar Ruby alone. And then I couldn't handle it, y'all. I went ahead and cut back my quick fire fabs. So I have 3 of them in here, beautiful panicle hydrangeas, and I just went ahead and trimmed all of them, just like the pufferfish. Just trim it back and you're good. This is the opening act phlox right here. You can see that Mimi had already trimmed on it some. It is a semi-evergreen for me, so I'm just leaving it. There's nothing to do at all to it. So it is totally fine. And then this is, I tell you, winter sun is just so much fun to film in. This is one of the phloxes that Mimi had missed. So what we'll do is just cut it down to the ground. This was an ultraviolet as well, and so I can tell by the leaf structure on it. So we'll just take it and just trim it down to the ground and leave it. Then we have some of the Tuscan Gold, I believe it was, Heliopsis. It's either Tuscan Gold or Tuscan Sun. I think it's Tuscan Gold. Right here, this Heliopsis, those are just sticks. Just trim them down, y'all. The plants are fine, they're down there. The root systems are happy. We're just gonna trim those back, get the sticks out, and there you go. And then the last thing is the grass. So here we have, this is Niagara Falls, a beautiful panicum grass. Love this. It is like a blue, what we call a bluegrass, and so it has that bluish hue to it. I am going to leave it. I like the winter interest. The birds like to have the protection with it, so I am going to leave it. You do need to prune your grasses before the springtime hits. So we've done it before, but basically you grab it up like a ponytail and you give it a flat top, because you want to get rid of this dead foliage before the new growth pops up, because this is not going to come back to life as far as the foliage that you see right here. So we want to get rid of all the brown foliage before that beautiful new growth starts to come up. Typically for me, that could be like end of February, mid-February, end of February. You can also tell that the plant is really done, because if you get wind, it'll start to shed, and it just starts to make a huge mess in the yard. At that point, I'm like, okay, you're done. And then I just cut it to the ground, and then there you go. So basically, that is what I'm going to do. And then I will meet you back here in just a minute. Alrighty, y'all, that was it. As easy as that. Got the rest of that flower bed cleaned up, and there you go. Now, is this portion of the berm completely done, ready for spring? Yeah, no. We've still got a lot of weeding that we need to take care of, and that is very important. We need to get those weeds out. Sometimes I have a feeling that the winter weeds can be more of a pain than the summer weeds. I don't know. Here in the South, we're blessed with weeds 4 seasons out of the year. So if you're covered in snow, at least you don't have to weed. So, I mean, you know, there's that to think about and be grateful for. So I do need to get in here and weed, and then we are going to go ahead and lay down fresh mulch in here. Not sure if we're going to do mulch like the Daddy Pete, or if we're going to use the Creekside compost blend. I'm thinking we're going to use the Daddy Pete because this is really nice, organically rich soil here. Before we do that, all those weeds have to come out, because that is most definitely a problem. And this is just, the chickens will love it. It's like I can, you know, get all this weeded and throw it in the chicken coop, and my gosh, they will have a field day and love it. Also, before we put down the new mulch, we'll have to come in here and get rid of the leaves right here, because they are super thick and there's weeds growing underneath them, and I need to get them out before we put that mulch down. They just simply blow, and they've gotten stuck right here. So you can see that the plants have kind of held on and act like little traps for those leaves. The rest of the garden, when the wind comes through here, it just blows them out. So what I'll do is just take them and move them about 15 feet right over there to the side of the woods, and then they will be good to go. So weeding, and then of course get the rest of the mulch down. And then come late winter, early spring, when I start to see some things pop up and wake up, then I will go ahead and fertilize. Especially my shrubs, my trees, my perennials. A great one, that's Swiss Army knife, that, as I call it, is the plant tone. Just go ahead once a year, feed those perennials, trees, and shrubs with a nice slow release organic fertilizer. it makes all the difference in the world. I've gotten some questions about which fertilizer to use. Keep in mind that the proven winners, both the water soluble and that time release, those are for your flowering annuals. Those are not for trees, shrubs, and perennials, right? So the proven winners fertilizer, whether it's water soluble or that time release, is for your flowering annuals. For your tree, shrubs, and perennials, your tones, right? If you want to get super specific, you can. Or if you're just like, you know what, something's better than nothing, just go with the plant tone. That's what I'll do here. Most likely with your hydrangeas, if you want to get specific, you can use rose tone. And then basically as a general rule for your evergreens, like the magnolia here, and then my Oakland holly down there, and my camellias, would be holly tone. Holly tone is great because on the bag itself, it tells you like the different plants that like that more acidic fertilizer. So if you want to get specific, you can, but you don't have to. Remember, don't get overwhelmed. So when in doubt, just grab the plant tone, throw it out, and then there you go. Just follow the recommended dosage on the bag. And there you go. So it has been, I have felt productive. I didn't get everything accomplished. In my brain, y'all are gonna laugh, in my brain this morning when I was thinking about this, I was like, oh yeah, I can get it cut back and then go ahead and get that weeded and mulched. Sometimes my brain is much more adventurous than my body and reality. With time. So anyway, I'm very proud of myself for getting this part done. Step 1, done. There's grace in gardening. The rest of this will happen when it happens. And then we'll go on to the other side of the berm at some point and do basically what I did here on the other side of the berm. So there you go. We are supposed, it's very exciting. Our family is all abuzz right now because on Friday, I don't remember when this video is going out. This video might be going out on Friday. We're supposed to get 1 to 3 inches of snow. Now, my people who were up, you know, in Michigan and Wisconsin and Canada and all you cold weather people, you're like 1 to 3 inches, big whoop. Y'all, we're in North Carolina. This is the South. Last year, we didn't even get this as far as like, they never even talked about snow here. So when something is rare and you like, it doesn't happen very often, you get excited about it, right? So for us in the South, that is snow. 1 to 3 inches of snow would be glorious. Now I would take more, you know, for a couple of days and then it can melt and go away and I'll be fine. But we do love a good snow. There's just something very peaceful and calming about that. And here in the South, when you get 1 to 3 inches, everything shuts down because we don't have the equipment, right? We don't have snow plows and all this other stuff to hit all the roads. So everybody, well, I won't say everybody because there are some people that just don't like the snow. But I would say as a general rule, most Southerners love a good 1 to 3 inches of snow. Let it be here 24, 36 hours, melt, and we're good to go. So if it happens, I will do a video because, you know, we'll be very excited about it. All right, my friends, as always, y'all have a great day. We will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.